This was one of like my first videos that I remember doing about plugins. I talked about this with the TR6S. Generally, I tend to use this a lot on drums. I use it a lot on synthesizers if they have transients that I just want to completely destroy and decide to mangle. And even with Bus Force, when I talked about that and said that I found that a bit better than Devil-Loc because it gave me more control, I still like Devil-Loc because of exactly how it's designed. So both Devil-Loc and Devil-Loc Deluxe go through this idea of emulating hardware that was relatively limited with the amount of controls that it has. So these are meant to emulate the Shure level lock from memory. And what I like about this is that it sounds good, and you only really have with Deluxe, like, 5 controls. So, crush, crunch, darkness, mix, and the release for the compressor, I'm guessing, which is in here, or the limiter, right? With Devil-Loc, you literally have 2 controls, and you're still able to get really good results from it. So let's have a listen. I've got this track here. It's basically just to see what I have. I just found a sample from Splice, put some 909s with it. Let's see what I've made. Sounds all right, but those 909s could do with a little bit of, peppering, couldn't they? Let's see what we can do with Devil-Loc. So firstly, I'm going to get rid of Deluxe. We're just going to use standard Devil-Loc, the one that's like relatively inexpensive from Soundtoys. Let's see what we can do. We have 2 controls. We have crush, we have crunch. In Devil-Loc Deluxe, this is most of what I use anyway. Cool. So we know that it adds a bit of that extra spice to our drums. It kind of ends up being in that extra harshness that we'd expect. It gives us a really nice distortion with some clipping in there as well, which always fits well with drums. At least I find it always fits well with drums. I mean, take into account that I've literally done no actual mixing. This is a track that I just made by finding like the first sample I could find in Splice and just putting it in here and then putting some drums in. And already you get some pretty good sounds out of it. Now that's Devil-Loc. I kind of don't like Devil-Loc, and as much as I love its sound and I like what it does to drums, I very rarely, if ever, use Devil-Loc. And the reason is actually really simple. It's because I also have Devil-Loc Deluxe. Why would I use Devil-Loc when I can have Devil-Loc Deluxe instead? And what I mean by that is, firstly, if I bring Devil-Loc back up, come up, there you go. So we have crush and crunch. We also have that here. What do you notice about Devil-Loc that you don't have? That's right, mix, which means that all of your sound goes through Devil-Loc or none of it does. And that mix adds quite a lot already, let alone darkness and the options for the release speed. So what I'm going to do is turn off Devil-Loc. I'm going to go into Devil-Loc Deluxe. I'm going to turn the mix down to 3, and I'm going to tend to do what I think I normally do, which is this. And I tend to have the release on fast so that it kind of still lets transients through. Turn the darkness down a bit. Let's see what we get with it. Yeah, and now you see why I like Devil-Loc Deluxe, because if I turned that mix to 10, which I'm not going to do because I enjoy you being able to hear, it's really quite harsh. But if you have it set harsh and then use a mix, you can really get some interesting results from it. It's a lot more than just a clipper or an audio level destroyer. If I decide instead to be a bit, smarter with it, I could do something like this and turn the crush down, and then we'll experiment with it, and we'll just play the drums here so we can see what sort of sounds we can get. So I really appreciate both Devil-Loc and Devil-Loc Deluxe as plugins, especially for what I use them on a lot of the time, which is my drums. I've used this on drums that I have that are sample based. I've used this on my Volca drum. I've used it on the Volca Beats. I've used it with the TR6S. I don't think that there's any drum sound that I haven't used this on that I then haven't used something like Arturia's Bus Force on. Something that is a bit annoying is that standard Devil-Loc, if you decide not to buy Devil-Loc Deluxe, doesn't give you a mix control, which I'm not sure, I don't think I've seen a plugin that doesn't give you a mix control except Devil-Loc. It's very strange. I don't really understand why. Maybe it's a deluxe feature because the original hardware didn't have a mix knob, but that's the only thing I could think of. If what you're looking for is more control, then Devil-Loc Deluxe won't give you that. I find Devil-Loc Deluxe and Devil-Loc as really great creative tools to get a very specific type of saturation and distortion into your drum sounds or into your synthesizers or even into voice or anything like that. I quite like Devil-Loc Deluxe even on the side of the other distortion plugins I have. And I have FabFilter Saturn, I have Softtube's Dirty Tape, I have lots of different saturation and distortion plugins, but none quite like this and none that sound exactly like this. It's available at $99 for Devil-Loc Deluxe. That gets you both Devil-Loc and Deluxe. You will just end up using Deluxe. I genuinely think it's worth it because I've had it for, I don't even know how many years now, at least since around about 2018 or 2019 as part of my Soundtoys collection. And I genuinely always tend to go for it. But yeah, that's Devil-Loc Deluxe. Do you own this? Do you agree? Have you owned this and never really used it? Let me know in the comments. I try to respond to my comments as long as it's in between, you know, full-time job and other projects that I have. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Seasons of Taste. Cool.